The fluorescent lights in room 314 buzzed like angry wasps, casting that sickly hospital glow over everything. My left leg was elevated in some contraption that looked like it belonged in a medieval torture chamber, courtesy of a forklift that decided to get friendly with my ankle at the warehouse yesterday. Nothing serious, the doctor assured me, just a nasty sprain that would keep me off my feet for a few days. Lucky you, I muttered to myself, staring at the water-stained ceiling tiles. Cedric Fallon, 43 years old, finally gets a vacation. The irony wasn't lost on me. After 16 years of marriage to Alma, this was probably the most peace I'd had in months. No complaints about my work clothes on the bedroom floor, no lectures about my lack of ambition, no subtle comparisons to her successful colleagues at the design firm. My phone buzzed against the scratchy hospital blanket. A text from my loving wife. Exhausted today, going to bed early. Don't call after 6 p.m., need rest. I glanced at the clock on the wall. 5:30. How considerate of her to give me 30 minutes of her precious time. I typed back with one finger, my other hand holding the phone steady. Sure thing, honey. Sweet dreams. Say hi to Marlow for me. The response came faster than a reflex. What's that supposed to mean? I smiled at the screen. After all these years, Alma still thought I was the same oblivious husband who believed her every excuse. The same guy who nodded along when she worked late, 3 nights a week, always with Marlow Trasker, her business partner, and my former drinking buddy from college. Nothing at all, just being friendly. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. She was typing, deleting, typing again. Classic Alma when she was scrambling for the right lie. Marlow's just a colleague, you know that. I opened the family location app on my phone. We'd installed it 2 years ago when Alma insisted we needed it for safety. Right now, her little blue dot was sitting pretty at 1247 Riverside Drive. Marlow's apartment building. Had been there for the past hour, according to the timestamp. Of course he is. Sleep tight. I set the phone aside and leaned back into the thin hospital pillow. The pieces had been falling into place for weeks now. The new clothes she claimed were for client meetings. The way she started showering as soon as she got home from those late nights. How she suddenly became protective of her phone, keeping it face down during dinner. But it was the little things that really gave her away, like how she stopped complaining about Marlow's stupid jokes when she came home from work. For 3 years, every conversation about the office included at least one eye roll about Marlow's immature humor or his habit of leaving coffee rings on her desk. Then suddenly, silence. No complaints, no rolled eyes, just neutral mentions of work stuff and client presentations. The phone started ringing. Alma's contact photo filled the screen, a picture from our anniversary dinner last month where she looked radiant and I looked like the supporting character in my own life. I let it ring. It rang again immediately. Then again. By the 4th call, I was genuinely curious about how desperate she was getting. I answered on the 5th ring. Hey, sweetheart. Thought you were going to bed early? Cedric. Her voice had that tight quality it got when she was trying to control the situation. What did you mean about Marlow? I told you, nothing. Just saying hi to an old friend. But why would you... I'm not even with him right now. I pulled up the location app again. Her dot hadn't moved from Riverside Drive. Of course not. You're home getting your beauty sleep, right? Silence stretched between us like a taut wire. I could practically hear her brain working, trying to figure out what I knew and how much trouble she was in. Right, she said finally. I'm home. Good. Well, I should let you rest. This medication is making me drowsy anyway. Wait, Cedric. I hung up. Within 30 seconds, my phone buzzed with a text. We need to talk when you get home. Then another. I think there's been a misunderstanding. And another. Please call me back. I turned the phone face down and closed my eyes. For the first time in months, I felt something that wasn't resignation or quiet disappointment. It was clarity. Sharp, clean clarity about exactly what my wife had been doing and exactly what I was going to do about it. The night nurse came in around 8 to check my vitals. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and the efficient manner of someone who'd seen everything twice. "How's the pressure?" she asked, wrapping the cuff around my arm. "Better than expected," I said. "Actually feeling pretty good right now." She smiled. "That's the spirit. Positive attitude makes all the difference in recovery." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. If only she knew. I wasn't recovering from an injury. I was recovering from 16 years of being treated like a second-class citizen in my own marriage. 16 years of Alma's subtle digs about my blue-collar job, her friends' husbands who were lawyers and doctors and executives. 16 years of being the reliable, boring husband who paid the bills while she chased her dreams and apparently other men. After the nurse left, I picked up my phone. 43 missed calls from Alma. 43. The desperation was almost impressive. There was also a text from an unknown number. "Your wife is at my place. Has been for 2 hours. Thought you should know. A concerned friend." I stared at the message. Someone else knew. Someone was watching. This was either very good news or very bad news, depending on how you looked at it. I typed back, "Thanks for the heads up. Any idea how long this has been going on?" The response came quickly. "Couple months, maybe more. Sorry, man. Nobody wanted to be the one to tell you." So it wasn't just me who'd noticed. Other people had seen what I'd been too trusting to acknowledge. The humiliation should have stung more than it did, but instead, I felt something cold and calculating settle into my chest. I opened a new text to Alma. "Enjoying Riverside Drive?" This time she didn't respond immediately. Minutes ticked by. Then my phone rang. "Where are you getting this information?" Her voice was different now, scared. "Does it matter?" "Cedric, listen to me. It's not what you think." "What do I think, Alma?" We were just working on the Henderson project. You know how demanding that client is." "At his apartment, at 8 p.m. for 2 hours. She was quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. "How long have you known?" she whispered finally. "Long enough." What are you going to do?" I smiled at the ceiling tiles, feeling something dark and satisfying unfurl in my chest. "I'm going to get some rest, Alma. Doctor's orders. We'll talk when I get home tomorrow." "Cedric, please." I hung up and turned off the phone. The taxi dropped me off at our house on Maple Street at 10 a.m. sharp. The neighborhood looked the same as always. Modest, 2-story homes with small front yards, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone's business but pretended they minded their own. Mrs. Quigg from next door was already at her front window, probably wondering why I was coming home in a taxi with my leg wrapped up. Alma's car was in the driveway. She'd taken the day off work, which was unusual. In 16 years of marriage, I could count on one hand the number of times she'd stayed home when she wasn't actually sick. I used my key and walked in, favoring my injured ankle just enough to make the limp noticeable. The house smelled like coffee and the vanilla candles Alma lit when she was nervous. "Cedric?" Her voice came from the kitchen. "Is that you? Were you expecting someone else?" She appeared in the hallway, still in her robe at 10 in the morning. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she had that look she got when she was preparing for a difficult conversation, chin up, shoulders back, ready to control the narrative. "How's your ankle?" "It'll heal." She nodded, wrapping the robe tighter around herself. "Good. That's good." We stood there looking at each other across the narrow hallway. 16 years of marriage, and it felt like we were strangers meeting for the first time. So, I said finally, Henderson project going well? Her face went pale. Cedric? Must be a challenging client if you need to work on it at Marlow's apartment until 8 p.m. It's not. We weren't. She stopped, took a breath, tried again. Okay. Yes. I was at Marlow's place, but we really were working. I nodded slowly. Working. Right. We were. The Henderson project is worth $200,000 to the firm. We needed to go over the presentations without interruptions. And his apartment is better for that than your office because… She was quiet for a moment, and I could see her scrambling for an explanation that would make sense. The office is too formal. We needed to spread everything out, really focus. Makes perfect sense. I limped past her toward the kitchen. Coffee smells good. She followed me, hovering near the doorway while I poured myself a cup. Her nervous energy was filling the room like smoke. Cedric, I know how this looks. How does it look? Like something it's not. I took a sip of coffee and studied her face. Even stressed and scared, Alma was beautiful. At 38, she still turned heads when we went out together, which made me wonder, not for the first time, why she'd married a warehouse supervisor with a high school education. What is it then? It's work. It's just work. And the phone calls you don't answer when I'm around? Work too? Her mouth opened, then closed. What phone calls? The ones that make you step outside, or go upstairs, or suddenly remember you need to check something in the garage. I don't know what you're talking about. I set down the coffee cup and looked at her directly. Alma, I've been married to you for 16 years. I know when you're lying. She crossed her arms over her chest, and I saw a flash of the old Alma, the one who could argue her way out of anything. Fine. Yes, Marlow calls sometimes. We're business partners, Cedric. We have a lot to discuss. Business partners who meet at his apartment in the evenings. Sometimes, yes. Business partners who text each other at all hours. When necessary. Business partners who… Stop. She held up a hand. Just stop. What exactly are you accusing me of? I picked up my coffee again and took another sip. The silence stretched between us, and I could see her getting more agitated by the second. I'm not accusing you of anything, I said finally. I'm just trying to understand why my wife of 16 years is lying to me about where she spends her evenings. I'm not lying. You told me you were going to bed early. You were at Marlow's apartment. I meant I was going to bed early after we finished working. At his place. Yes. Until 8 p.m. Yes. On a Tuesday night. She was getting frustrated now, which was exactly what I wanted. Frustrated Alma made mistakes. What difference does it make what day it was? Just seems like an odd day for such an important work session. The Henderson presentation is on Friday. We needed the time. I nodded thoughtfully. Right. Friday. That's today. Her face went white. What? Today is Friday, Alma. The Henderson presentation you were working so hard on Tuesday night? It's today. She stared at me, and I could see her brain working frantically to process what I'd just said. No, today is Wednesday. Check your phone. She fumbled for her phone, which was sitting on the kitchen counter. I watched her face as she looked at the screen. Oh God. Rough week? She set the phone down with shaking hands. I haven't been sleeping well. I got confused. Must be all those late work sessions. Cedric, please, can we just sit down and talk about this like adults? Sure. I limped over to the kitchen table and sat down heavily, making sure she could see how much my ankle was bothering me. Let's talk. She took the chair across from me, and I noticed she was still clutching her phone. I know you have questions, she began. Just one, really. Okay. How long have you been sleeping with Marlow? The question hung in the air between us like a bomb waiting to explode. Alma's face went through several expressions: shock, denial, anger, and finally something that looked almost like relief. I'm not sleeping with him. Okay? I'm not. I heard you. But you don't believe me. I shrugged. Doesn't really matter what I believe, does it? She leaned forward, reaching across the table like she was going to take my hand. I pulled back slightly, and she noticed. It matters to me. Then tell me the truth. I am telling you the truth. I finished my coffee and set the cup down. Alma, I'm going to ask you one more time, and I want you to think very carefully before you answer. She nodded. Are you having an affair with Marlow Trasker? She looked me straight in the eyes. No. I smiled. Okay then. I guess we're done here. I stood up and started to leave the kitchen. Behind me, I heard her chair scrape against the floor. Where are you going? To take a shower, and then I think I'll give Marlow a call. Congratulate him on the Henderson presentation. Cedric, wait! But I was already limping up the stairs, leaving her standing in the kitchen with her lies and her panic, and her phone full of evidence she thought I'd never see. The shower gave me time to think. Hot water had always helped me process things, and right now, I had a lot to process. Alma was lying, that much was obvious. The question was how deep the lies went, and what I was going to do about it. I'd never been the jealous type. In 16 years, I'd never checked her phone, never followed her, never questioned her about where she'd been or who she'd been with. I'd trusted her completely, which now seemed incredibly naive. But I wasn't naive anymore. After getting dressed, I sat on the edge of our bed and really looked at our bedroom for the first time in months. New sheets I didn't remember buying, a bottle of perfume on her dresser I'd never seen before, a stack of books on her nightstand that weren't there last week. I picked up the top book, Rediscovering Your Authentic Self After 35. The kind of self-help book people read when they were planning major life changes. The second book was worse. Starting Over, A Woman's Guide to New Beginnings. I set the books down and opened her nightstand drawer. Buried under some old magazines and a pack of gum, I found a small notebook. Alma had always been a list maker, writing down everything from grocery items to long-term goals. This notebook was different. The first few pages were filled with what looked like pros and cons lists, but the handwriting was too small to read without squinting. I took a picture with my phone so I could examine it later. Cedric? Alma's voice came from downstairs. Can you come down here for a minute? Be right there. I put everything back exactly as I'd found it and headed downstairs. Alma was in the living room, sitting on the edge of the couch with her hands clasped in her lap. I want to be completely honest with you, she said. I sat down in my recliner, the one she'd been trying to get me to replace for 2 years. I'm listening. Marlow and I have become close, closer than just business partners. How close? We talk. About everything, about our marriages, our dreams, what we want out of life. And what do you want out of life, Alma? She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. I want to feel alive again. I want to feel like I matter, like I'm more than just someone's wife who happens to have a job. The words stung, but I kept my expression neutral. And Marlow makes you feel that way? He listens to me, really listens. When I talk about the business, about my ideas for expansion, he doesn't just nod and change the subject. I listen to you. You listen to what I'm saying. He listens to who I am. I had to admit, that was a pretty good line. Marlow always had been smooth with words. So you have feelings for him? Yes, I do. And does he have feelings for you? He says he does. But you're not sleeping with him. She looked up at me, and I saw something in her eyes that might have been guilt or might have been defiance. No, we're not. But you want to. It's not about that. What's it about? It's about feeling connected to someone. It's about having conversations that matter. It's about being with someone who sees me as an equal instead of what? Instead of the woman who married beneath her. The words hit me like a physical blow. In 16 years, she'd never said it that directly. Is that how you see our marriage? It's how everyone sees our marriage, Cedric. Your wife, the successful interior designer, and you, the warehouse guy who never finished college. I never knew that bothered you. It didn't used to. But lately, I've been thinking about what my life could have been if I'd made different choices. Different choices like Marlow. Maybe. I leaned back in my recliner and studied her face. She looked younger somehow, like talking about this had lifted some weight off her shoulders. So what happens now? I asked. I don't know. I was hoping we could figure it out together. Figure what out? Whether you're going to leave me for Marlow? I'm not leaving you for anyone. This isn't about leaving you. What's it about then? It's about figuring out how to be happy. I nodded slowly. And you're not happy with me. I'm not happy with us, with what we've become. What have we become? Roommates. We live in the same house, sleep in the same bed, but we don't really connect anymore. And whose fault is that? I don't think it's anyone's fault. I think we just grew apart. Or you grew away from me. She was quiet again, and I could see her choosing her words carefully. Maybe I did. I stood up, testing my ankle. It was feeling better already. Well, I appreciate your honesty. What does that mean? It means now I know where I stand. Cedric, I don't want to hurt you. Too late for that. I want us to work this out. Work what out? You just told me you have feelings for another man and you're not happy in our marriage. But that doesn't mean it's over. Doesn't it? She stood up and took a step toward me. We could try counseling. We could work on connecting again. While you're emotionally involved with Marlow. I could end that. Could you? If you wanted me to. What I want, I said, is a wife who doesn't have to be asked to end her relationship with another man. She flinched like I'd slapped her. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? I could feel my voice rising, and I forced myself to stay calm. Fair would have been having this conversation before you started spending your evenings at his apartment. Nothing happened. Something happened, Alma. Maybe not physically, but something definitely happened. She sat back down on the couch, and I saw tears forming in her eyes. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. For what? For having feelings for someone else? Or for getting caught? For hurting you? Are you? Are you really sorry for hurting me? Or are you sorry this is more complicated than you thought it would be? She didn't answer, which was an answer in itself. I headed toward the stairs. I'm going to lie down for a while. My ankle is bothering me. Cedric? I stopped, but didn't turn around. What happens now? I don't know, Alma. You tell me. You're the one who wants to rediscover her authentic self. I went upstairs and closed the bedroom door behind me. Through the window, I could see Mrs. Quigg in her yard, pretending to water her flowers while obviously trying to figure out what was going on at our house. I pulled out my phone and looked at the picture I'd taken of Alma's notebook. With the zoom function, I could make out most of the writing. The first list was titled Reasons to Stay. It included things like financial security, Cedric is a good man, and familiar life. The second list was titled Reasons to Go. That list was longer and included items like no real connection, different life goals, and settling versus thriving. At the bottom of the page, in Alma's careful handwriting, was a single line. Marlow makes me feel like the person I was meant to be. I stared at that line for a long time. Then I opened my contacts and scrolled down to a name I hadn't called in months. Big Walt's Bar and Grill. Walt? It's Cedric Fallon. Cedric, how the hell are you? Haven't seen you in forever. Been better. Listen. Are you free to talk? I could use some advice. For you? Always. Come on down. First beer's on the house. I looked at my reflection in the bedroom mirror. The man staring back at me looked older than he had a week ago, but there was something else in his eyes, something that hadn't been there before. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Big Waltz hadn't changed in the 5 years since I'd been a regular. Same neon beer signs, same scarred wooden bar, same smell of fried food and old cigarettes that no amount of cleaning could eliminate. Walt himself looked exactly the same too, 6'4", 250 pounds, with arms like tree trunks and a gray beard that made him look like a biker version of Santa Claus. Well, look what the cat dragged in. He grinned and pulled a beer from the tap without asking what I wanted. Heard you got married to that fancy designer lady. 16 years ago. Time flies. He set the beer in front of me and leaned against the bar. So what's eating you? I took a long drink and looked around the bar. It was early afternoon on a Friday, so the place was mostly empty except for a couple of regulars playing pool in the back. My wife is having an affair. Walt's expression didn't change. You sure? Pretty sure. Pretty sure or no for certain? She admitted to having feelings for the guy. Says they haven't slept together, but she's been lying to me for months about where she's been spending her time. Ah. Walt poured himself a beer and took a sip. The old emotional affair defense. You've seen this before? Brother, I've been running this place for 25 years. I've seen everything twice. He gestured around the bar. Half the conversations that happen in here are about cheating spouses. What do most people do? Depends. Some try to work it out, some get divorced, some get even. Get even how? Walt studied my face for a moment. You thinking about revenge, Cedric? I'm thinking about a lot of things. Revenge is a dangerous game. Usually hurts the person seeking it more than the person they're trying to hurt. What if it doesn't? What do you mean? I took another drink, organizing my thoughts. What if the person seeking revenge is smarter than everyone thinks? What if they're tired of being underestimated and overlooked? Walt nodded slowly. Now you're talking about something different. Am I? Revenge is about hurting someone because they hurt you. What you're describing sounds more like justice. What's the difference? Justice is about making things right, about showing people who they really are and letting them face the consequences. I thought about that for a minute. And how would someone go about seeking justice? Hypothetically? Hypothetically. Walt grinned. Hypothetically, someone would need to be very careful, very smart, and very patient. They'd need to gather evidence, plan every move, and stay 2 steps ahead of everyone else. That sounds complicated. The best plans usually are. He leaned closer. But first, you need to decide what you really want. Do you want your wife back? Do you want to hurt her? Or do you want everyone to see the truth about what kind of person she really is? I considered the question. What if I want all 3? Then you better be prepared for a long game. We talked for another hour. Walt had a way of asking the right questions without giving direct advice, which I appreciated. By the time I left, I had the beginnings of a plan. The first step was information gathering. I needed to know exactly what Alma and Marlow had been doing, when they'd been doing it, and who else knew about it. I drove to the library and used one of their computers to create a new email account. Then I sent a message to the unknown number that had texted me at the hospital. This is Cedric. Would you be willing to meet in person? I have some questions. The response came within minutes. Coffee shop on 5th Street, 1 hour. The coffee shop was busy enough to provide cover, but quiet enough to have a conversation. I found a table in the corner and waited. At exactly 4 o'clock, a woman approached my table. Cedric? I looked up to see Jennifer Walsh, a neighbor from 3 streets over. Her husband, Tom, worked at the same warehouse I did, though in a different department. Jennifer, I should have guessed. She sat down across from me, looking uncomfortable. I wasn't sure I should get involved, but Tom said if it was his wife, he'd want to know. How long have you known? About 2 months. I work part-time at the coffee shop near Marlow's apartment building. I've seen them together several times. Together how? Holding hands, kissing, acting like a couple? So much for Alma's claim that nothing physical had happened. Anyone else seen them? My friend Lisa works at that fancy restaurant downtown. She's seen them there twice, always at a corner table, always very cozy. Recent? Last week was the most recent, Tuesday night. The same night Alma claimed they were working on the Henderson project at his apartment. Jennifer, I need to ask you a favor. What kind of favor? I need someone to document their meetings, times, places, what they're doing. She looked uncertain. I don't know if I'm comfortable spying on people. I'm not asking you to spy. I'm asking you to pay attention to things that are happening in public places, things anyone could see. What are you planning to do with the information? I'm planning to make sure my wife can't lie to me anymore. She was quiet for a moment, then nodded. Tom's going to want to help too. He's always liked you. I'd appreciate that. We talked for another few minutes, working out the details. Jennifer would keep an eye on the coffee shop and restaurant. Tom would ask around at work to see if anyone else had noticed anything. After Jennifer left, I sat in the coffee shop for another hour, thinking through the next steps. I needed more than just witness accounts. I needed documentation that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. I drove to an electronics store and bought a small digital camera with a zoom lens. Then I went to an office supply store and bought a notebook, the same kind Alma used for her lists. By the time I got home, it was almost 7 o'clock. Alma's car wasn't in the driveway. I found a note on the kitchen counter. Working late on Henderson presentation. Don't wait up. I smiled and opened my new notebook to the first page. At the top, I wrote, Day 1. Then I started writing down everything I knew, everything I suspected, and everything I planned to do about it. This was going to be interesting. 3 weeks later, I had enough evidence to end 3 marriages and destroy 2 careers. The notebook was full of dates, times, locations, and witness accounts. The camera had captured dozens of photos of Alma and Marlow together in situations that couldn't be explained as just business. But the real breakthrough came when I found Alma's backup phone. She'd hidden it in her gym bag, which she kept in the hall closet. I only found it because I was looking for batteries and noticed the bag was heavier than it should have been. The phone was a prepaid model, the kind people bought when they didn't want their activities tracked. It contained 6 months of text messages between Alma and Marlow that left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. More importantly, it contained messages between Alma and her best friend Judith, who worked at the same design firm. Judith hadn't just known about the affair, she'd been encouraging it. More than that, she'd been actively helping Alma plan her exit strategy from our marriage. According to the messages, Judith had her own reasons for wanting to see me hurt. 2 years ago, when she'd been caught embezzling money from a previous employer, she'd asked me to lie and provide her with a false alibi. I'd refused, and she'd been fired and prosecuted. Apparently, she'd been holding a grudge ever since. The messages revealed that Judith had been manipulating Alma for months, feeding her dissatisfaction with our marriage and pushing her toward Marlow. She'd even helped arrange some of their meetings. But the most damaging messages were the ones where Alma and Judith discussed their plan for after Alma left me. They'd been plotting to start their own design firm, using contacts and client lists stolen from their current employer. I photographed every message, uploaded them to a secure cloud account, and put the phone back exactly where I'd found it. Then I started planning the final phase of my campaign. The community center was hosting its annual block party the following Saturday. It was the kind of event where everyone in the neighborhood showed up, including all the people who'd been whispering about my marriage behind my back for months. It was the perfect venue for what I had in mind. I spent the week making preparations. I contacted Jennifer and Tom, who'd been invaluable in gathering information. I reached out to Lisa, the restaurant worker who'd seen Alma and Marlow together. I even tracked down the security guard at Marlow's apartment building, who remembered seeing them together multiple times. Most importantly, I made copies of everything: photos, messages, witness statements, financial records showing the money Alma had been spending on new clothes and dinners out. On Friday night, Alma came home from another late work session and found me sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a manila folder. "What's that?" she asked, though something in her voice suggested she already knew. 16 years of marriage, I said, and 6 months of lies. She sat down across from me, her face pale. "Cedric, I know about the phone, Alma. I know about the messages. I know about Judith's involvement and your plans to steal client lists." She stared at me without speaking. "I also know that you and Marlow have been sleeping together since March, despite what you told me about nothing physical happening. How did you? It doesn't matter how. What matters is that tomorrow night, at the block party, everyone else is going to know too." Her face went white. "You can't." "I can, and I will. This will destroy me. You should have thought about that 6 months ago." She started crying, which surprised me. In 16 years, I'd seen Alma cry maybe a dozen times, and never over anything involving me. "Please, Cedric, I know I made mistakes, but we can work this out." "Work what out?" "You've been planning to leave me for months. You've been stealing from your employer. You've been lying to everyone, including yourself. I'll end it with Marlow. I'll quit the firm. We can start over." I opened the folder and spread some of the photos across the table. Alma and Marlow holding hands outside the restaurant, kissing in the parking lot of his apartment building, laughing together at a coffee shop while I was at work. "Look at these pictures, Alma. Really look at them." She glanced down, then looked away. "Do you see someone who made a mistake? Or do you see someone who's been living a double life? I never meant for it to go this far. But it did go this far, and now everyone gets to see who you really are." She stood up abruptly. "I won't let you do this. How are you going to stop me? I'll tell people you're lying, that you faked the evidence." I smiled. "Good luck with that. I have witnesses, Alma. People who saw you together, people who heard you planning." "What witnesses?" "You'll find out tomorrow night." She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Fear. Real, genuine fear. "What do you want?" she asked quietly. "I want everyone to know the truth about what kind of person you are. I want Marlow's wife to know what her husband has been doing. I want your employer to know about the client lists you've been copying." "And then what?" "Then you get to live with the consequences of your choices." She left the house that night and didn't come back. I figured she was probably at Marlow's apartment trying to figure out damage control. It didn't matter. Tomorrow night, the whole neighborhood would know exactly what Alma Fallon had been doing while her husband was working double shifts to pay for her new lifestyle. I went to bed early and slept better than I had in months. The block party was everything I'd hoped for. Half the neighborhood was there, including several people who'd been gossiping about my marriage for weeks. Alma showed up with Marlow, which was bold but stupid. I waited until the evening was in full swing. Then I stood up and asked for everyone's attention. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight," I began, "and I want to share something with all of you." I could see Alma across the room, her face frozen in panic. "Some of you may have heard rumors about problems in my marriage. Tonight, I want to set the record straight." I opened my folder and began reading from Alma's text messages. The explicit ones where she described her feelings for Marlow. The ones where she and Judith planned their business theft. The ones where she called me a burden and talked about how much happier she'd be without me. By the time I finished, the room was completely silent. Alma was crying. Marlow looked like he wanted to disappear, and everyone else was staring at them with a mixture of shock and disgust. "So yes," I concluded, "there have been problems in my marriage. but not the kind of problems you might have thought. I closed the folder and looked directly at Alma. The floor is yours if you'd like to respond. She didn't respond. She just grabbed Marlow's arm and rushed toward the exit. As they left, I heard Mrs. Quigg say to her husband, "Well, I never would have guessed." The rest of the evening was a blur of conversations with neighbors who wanted to express their support and share their own stories about cheating spouses. By the time I got home, I felt lighter than I had in months. I found Alma in our bedroom packing a suitcase. "Going somewhere?" "I can't stay here," she said without looking at me. "Not after tonight." "Probably for the best." She stopped packing and turned to face me. "Was it worth it? Destroying my life just to get revenge?" I thought about the question for a moment. "I didn't destroy your life, Alma. I just showed people what you'd already done to it." She finished packing in silence and left without another word. I never saw her again. 3 months later, I heard through the neighborhood gossip network that she and Marlow had both been fired from the design firm after the client list theft came to light. Marlow's wife had divorced him and taken half of everything he owned. Alma had moved to another state and was working as a sales clerk at a furniture store. I was sitting in my recliner, reading the newspaper and enjoying the quiet of my house when the phone rang. "Cedric, it's Jennifer Walsh." "Hey, Jennifer, how are you?" "I'm good. Listen, I wanted to let you know that Tom heard something at work today." "What's that?" "Apparently Marlow tried to get his job back at the design firm. They told him they'd already filled his position." I smiled. "That's too bad for Marlow." "There's more. The person they hired to replace him? It's a guy named David Chen. Tom says he's really good at what he does." "Good for David. The thing is, David specifically asked not to work with any former employees who might have been involved in the client list situation." Smart man. "So even if Alma ever tried to come back, she couldn't work there." I leaned back in my recliner and looked around my quiet, peaceful house. "Thanks for letting me know, Jennifer." "No problem. You deserve to know how this all turned out." After I hung up, I sat there for a while, thinking about the past few months. I thought about Alma and her lists of reasons to stay or go. I thought about Marlow and his smooth words and empty promises. I thought about Judith and her petty revenge that had backfired so spectacularly. Most of all, I thought about the man I'd been 6 months ago. Trusting, naive, willing to overlook obvious signs that his wife was lying to him. That man was gone. In his place was someone harder, smarter, and much more careful about who he trusted. I picked up the remote control and turned on the television. There was a baseball game on, and my team was winning. For the first time in 16 years, I had the house to myself, nobody to answer to, and nobody lying to me about where they'd been or who they'd been with. It felt like freedom.